How's it going, guys? Welcome to another video. Today is all about your router, your internet, and 5 of the best ways I have found to improve your speeds. Let's get started. Most of you have probably already done this, but turning off and on your router, but we're gonna go a little further than that and reset the whole system. So one, you wanna reset your actual router. This might be a button on the back, or you can simply unplug it, wait a few seconds, plug it back in, and let it reboot. But we're gonna take this one step further, and after you've reset your router, you wanna go ahead and go to your computer that you're using and reset the Wi-Fi adapter or the Ethernet adapter that you also have. And I'm gonna have an on-screen display here so you can kind of see how to do that in Windows. And then the last reset we can do here for number 1 is resetting your antennas. So whether it's on your router or whether you have a little Wi-Fi adapter connected to your computer, go ahead and take the antennas and unscrew them and rescrew them. We just call this reseating the antenna. Now let's move on to your second method here. We're gonna get a little more in depth. This is going to be your signal, all about the signal strength you are receiving. Now, let's start with the basics of a lot of routers today are dual band, and this means you'll see on your network, you'll have 2 identically named Wi-Fis. One says 2.4, one says 5. Now, this is 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. These are just different frequencies in which the signal is broadcast. Now, a lot of people think the 5 gigahertz is just the faster one, but this is not necessarily true. It can be faster if you have a clear line of sight to your router, which means there's no objects interfering between the signal and your computer. Now, if this is not the case, which for most people it's not because let's say you're upstairs in another room, not close to the router, that means the signal has to go through the walls of your house, go through any objects, couches, refrigerators, anything that's in the way of the signal to your computer. And in this case, the 2.4 gigahertz band is probably going to be better for you because it's a slower frequency, so it can go through stuff like walls very easily. If you want to know more about the differences between 2.4 and 5 gigahertz bands, I have another video, go ahead and check that out, but let's move on. Signal does not stop at this, so another method you can use to increase your signal, whether you're on 2.4 or 5 gigahertz bands, is to make sure your router is not obstructed by any giant metal or signal interfering objects. So this could be something like a refrigerator. So if it is in your kitchen and it is on the other side of your refrigerator and your room or computer is on the other side, it is going to cause a lot of signal interference. And this could be more than just a fridge. This could be your microwave. This could be a giant metal cabinet, say in your garage. Just make sure that nothing like that is in the way of your router. And if none of this is possible and you want to go out and buy something, you can get a Wi-Fi range extender. Basically, it's going to take the signal that it receives and say a clear line of sight to it, and then that device will just plug into a wall socket and it'll repeat that signal into a different direction. All right, moving on to number 3, we're gonna be talking about upgrading. Now, upgrading your router doesn't necessarily mean going out and buying a new router. This could just be upgrading the firmware and the software that is on your current router. Now, over time, as you get different internet providers, you might get different routers that they give you, or maybe you've just kept the same old router and you've upgraded the service with the same provider. One thing I'd recommend if you have the means, the money, the capability to actually go out and get a new router for yourself, I'd recommend doing that because a lot of new routers not only can offer you, say, more antennas for bigger range, they can also give you better standards and more upgraded hardware to give you the latest Wi-Fi or any other kind of feature that's come out since you've gotten your previous router. But if you can't do that, you can still go ahead and get the software or firmware upgrades for free. And now this will depend based on what router you have, but most likely you can just go to the router's website, search up the latest firmware or software that is on your router, and you might have to look up a tutorial here or there. I don't have one out yet, but if that is something you're interested in, I can go ahead and make those. Leave a comment below if that would be something that you would be interested in. All right, let's move on to number 4, and this is gonna be running a wired connection. Now, some of you will get lucky enough to where your router might actually be pretty close to your computer and you've just been using Wi-Fi this whole time, where you can go out to the store for $5 or $10, get a cheap Ethernet cable, and plug directly into your router instead. If you have a laptop or something that doesn't have an Ethernet port, there are adapters online that are also quite inexpensive that you can get, and this is going to give you the fastest internet you can possibly get from your router. Now, as good as Wi-Fi is, it does always have limitations and it'll never be as fast as a physical connection. So if this is an option for you, go ahead and plug in straight away. Now, if it's not an option to where your router is a little further away, you can get pretty inexpensive Cat 5e cables, pretty much the fastest you'll need for a long time here. And you can get giant spools of that, and if you're up to the challenge, you can go ahead and run that throughout your house, run it through your attic, through the walls, whatever you need to do. I know that's a little bit much for some people, but hey, if you're up for the challenge and you want to do a little home renovation kind of thing, it is not as hard as some people think. It can be a really fun project, and once you do have it done, it can give you the fastest internet that your router can supply. All right, this brings us to our last point here, number 5, and this is going to be probably the more technical in-depth one, but it can be easy, it's totally free to use, and this is the software NetSpot. This allows you to look at your Wi-Fi stream, see the channel that you're using and the frequency. And the goal here is basically, one, to go ahead and check your 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz bands, and it'll actually tell you in a number, percentage, 1 to 100, what signal you are currently receiving. Look at the list. They even have a graph that you can use to kind of see which signal is better at the time. And they also show you what channel it's using. Now, this is a little more in depth, and we're going to keep it very simple here, but basically 2.4 gigahertz bands have 11 channels typically, 1 to 11. I believe in Europe it goes up to 13. So if you're from Europe, you might see 2 extra channels there. 5 gigahertz has a lot more channels, you'll notice. So the goal here is basically to see which channels are most used. And now if you find that the 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz band that you're currently using is using the same channels that a lot of other devices near you are using, this can cause a lot of signal interruption. So what you want to do is go log into your router, find in your router settings where you can select the channel that it uses. Change that channel to whatever is least active on your network. Okay, I wanted to step back a little bit to show you a little more in depth on how you get to this menu here to change your channel. So pretty much you're gonna need to go to your router and find the IP address. It should be a 10-digit number looking something like this in the top. And you just wanna type that in to whatever web browser you're using. I'm just having Chrome here. It'll bring you to a page that looks something like this. It will vary though depending on who your provider is. You'll wanna find wherever your Wi-Fi settings are, and you'll see here it's under home network for me under Wi-Fi. And I didn't show it here because it's a password, but it will sometimes ask you to use a password that's also on the router. Usually it's located right next to wherever you found that IP address. Now what you want to do is scroll down to where you see the configuration options, and it's usually somewhat near the top. You'll see where it says channel, and it's set to automatic for me, but you can go here and manually select whatever channel you wish for it to be on. And like I said, you're gonna have to go through and just kind of tally up what channels are using on what devices, and it should show you pretty much every device in the range of your computer that it can sense. And then from there, you can just find a channel that's least active and go ahead and switch your router to use that channel instead, and that'll hopefully give you the best signal with the least interruptions possible. And that is all the tips I have for you today on increasing your internet speed. If any of those helped you out, go ahead and leave a like on this video. And if you had any questions or concerns, or maybe something just confused you in this video, leave a comment below. I'll be down there to help you guys out. And I hope to see you all in the next video. See you guys later.